All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Two Asian Blokes podcast, a podcast where we talk about Asian pop culture, TV shows, movies, music, food, anime, comics, whatever we really feel like at the time. My name is Dan with a H, and with me, as always, my co-host Tavi.
What's up, everybody? Yeah, the last Daniel Craig James Bond movie is going to come out.
Have you heard anything about this James Bond film?
I've heard a little bit. Apparently, it's not bad. It's got a little bit of barbecue sauce on it, is what I've heard.
It's a bit darker, isn't it? That's an odd way to end a tenure as a James Bond.
I don't think its ending is, like, dark. I think it's just... I don't know. Like, I think that it's just the tone.
Maybe there's just Daniel Craig being fed up with having to play this character unwillingly is just coming out in his performance.
Because you know how when they release a James Bond movie, there's always some corporation that does an ad for it.
Sure.
Some post or a bank.
Like a watch company or...
Yeah. Usually the actor appears in the ads.
Mr. Blasnen? Remember that one?
Yeah. I saw one recently. I think DHL were promoting the movie, and it's just a guy who's like, oh yeah, it's a delivery for Mr. Bond, and like a car drives up and is about to give him the box for Bond or whatever, but then the car drives off and then some kind of car chase happens, and then like the guy gives the box to James Bond, but you never see Daniel Craig, like not even a glimpse. It's just like it's all implied, because I just imagine like the card company's like, so you want to come film the ad for us? And he's like, no. It's like, oh, okay.
Surely it's in his contract though that he has to do that kind of stuff. Oh, maybe not. I guess not.
Yeah, I feel like there was probably some deal where he's like, I don't have to do like ad promotions for this shit.
I know he's tried so hard to like get out of this shit.
To get out of it.
He's probably at least been able to get out of the shilling side of it.
Are you looking forward to watching the new Bond movie?
I am. I've always been a fan of Bond. Like, I mean, not a super fan, but I've always enjoyed the films. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think even if it's not great, I'll still have a good time in it.
I do like the Daniel Craig series. I grew up with the Brosnan period, and Tomorrow Never Dies was the first M-rated movie I ever saw in the cinema, which was a bit of a landmark. So that's thanks to Bond.
But we grew up with GoldenEye, the video game as well. So that's that's probably the best thing about the Brosnan Bond run is that video game.
Yeah, GoldenEye was the best Brosnan Bond film. I like Tomorrow Never Dies. As critically panned as they were, I did enjoy The World Is Not Enough when I was a kid.
How about Die Another Day?
I haven't seen Die Another Day.
Yes, you have.
Its entirety.
Oh, okay. You just seen that video clip where they're fencing. Because I'm going to bloody continue.
That's one of the best things to come out of Die Another Day.
Yeah, the Daniel Craig run, for me, seems less memorable than the Brosnan run.
Do you think that's because we're older and we kind of
it could be,
have grown out of the James Bond?
Just less impression has been made on me.
I feel the same way. I feel like when I think of Bond, I think of like Pierce Brosnan because I grew up with Pierce Brosnan.
From what I've heard, the Daniel Craig franchise kind of shifted direction, right? Is a bit of a reboot for Bond, like less goofy and stuff.
Was it Martin Campbell that did GoldenEye, and then he rebooted it again with Casino Royale.
Yeah.
So he shifted the direction twice with GoldenEye. Because that was supposed to be a reboot, and then he shifted it again with Casino Royale. There's been a number of prolific directors who've worked on the Craig series. Martin Campbell, Sam Mendes, who did Skyfall, and Skyfall kind of was trying to bring it back to the original slightly campy feel. But it was still quite serious. But I guess with the Bond movies, it falls into the espionage action. With the theme of Bond, we wanted to talk about a couple of espionage films from Asia.
And these movies are good. These the two we're going to talk about today. We're going to be talking about Cold Eyes and Age of Shadows.
Yeah, two great movies. I forgot how much I'd liked these movies when I had recently rewatched them. But yeah, I guess we'll jump into Cold Eyes first. Cold Eyes is espionage thriller. There are some action elements in there. It's about a woman with like photographic memory, and she joins a surveillance team to catch a criminal mastermind who runs a series of bank robberies. This movie was a fairly big deal in Korea. The actress Han Hyo-joo, who plays the lead, and like one of my top crushes in like the industry. She won Best Actress for, I think it was like the Blue Dragon Awards for her performance in this role.
Oh, okay.
I think it's like considered a top honor as like the Korean Oscars, I guess. So yeah, good on her.
It's also got one of my crushes in it, Jung Woo-sung.
Yeah, he's another crush of mine too. Yeah, two very great people. Two very, well, I mean, that's not bitter. Two very attractive people in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just about being attractive. It's the charisma. Yeah. It's the screen presence. Like they seem quite nice, quite likable as well.
I always remember watching them in the Running Man episode when
they're promoting this film. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like one of the games that they were playing, it's kind of involved in like chasing other people, and like Jung Woo-sung was like bumping in through doors and stuff because I think he was like being a secret character.
Yeah.
I remember Jae-suk sees like Jung Woo-sung like smash through the door, and it's like, fuck man, like this is the movie. Yeah. Like you don't have to be so cool all the time. Yeah, Jung Woo-sung is like one of the coolest guys in Korean cinema. I first saw him in The Good, the Bad, and the Weird. I guess he plays the good. I don't remember the character's name, but it's a great flick.
I seen him in a John Woo film.
Oh, really?
Reign of Assassins. It's got Michelle Yeoh in it. Yeah.
Is that the period one, or is that the remake?
No,
yeah. I haven't seen that one. I've seen it advertised, but I haven't watched it.
I remember it being okay.
Yeah, it looked like it was just okay.
Yeah. I was just surprised to see him alongside, like, I think he's I'm pretty sure he's speaking Mandarin in that or whatever.
Is he multilingual?
I guess
talented
so.
dude.
I don't know. Yeah,
very 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 handsome dude, talented dude, and he's I think he's a pretty big name in Korea.
I'd say he's A-lister. Up there. Yeah.
Couple A-list, like Han Hyo-joo's an A-lister for sure.
Is she? I haven't seen her in anything else.
She does adorable, charming very well. Before Cold Eyes, she was in that movie Always, where she plays like the blind girl. And when I saw that movie, I was like, yeah, like that's it. Crush. And then she was in some other movie about like a fireman and a doctor, which just really wasn't very good, but she did really well in that movie.
To me, I mean, she is very likable and very cute. To me, she's always seemed a bit like the Korean equivalent of like a Zooey Deschanel.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. But she has done some action roles since. She was in and I guess it's probably from her performance in this movie, she was one of the leads in the Jason Bourne spin-off, Treadstone.
Oh, really?
Which is, I guess, is the agency, yeah. So she plays, I guess, a prominent character, but whether that show was successful or not, I'm not sure.
Does she speak English?
I think she's been learning to speak English, because I know she can speak Japanese really well, because she's done some Japanese movies. But she's probably been learning English because she's got, I guess, international appeal, I suppose. But yeah, this movie is actually more in line to the Jason Bourne series, because it's a lot of zoom in, zoom outs. It's all about surveillance. So that kind of battle of surveillance with espionage.
Yeah.
I guess the movie kind of revolves around Han Hyo-joo's character, who her code name is Piggy when she joins the team. And then there's the chief. He's probably the second central character. And then Jung Woo-sung he's in his own right, like a fleshed out villain. The first time he's played a villain, apparently.
Oh, okay.
Because I was following the production of this movie back
when you were stalking Han Hyo-joo.
back when I was stalking Han Hyo-joo.
You were like, oh, okay, where is she going to be on this day while she's filming this? Okay, what are the access points to this place?
But yeah, this movie is... Yeah, I really like this movie. It's pretty plot-driven. You don't see too much of the character development, but you see like bits and pieces of it through the performances. This movie was a remake of a Hong Kong movie called Eye in the Sky, which has Simon Yam in it. He plays the chief, and he's fairly prolific in the Hong Kong cinema scene. What are your thoughts on this movie?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty unique film in that not that much action occurs. Like, a lot of it is surveillance. It's kind of like... Do you remember the first Mission Impossible film?
Barely, but yeah, bits and pieces of it, yeah.
Like an early scene where they're tailing a guy who's got the knock list, and they're kind of blending and doing like kind of spycraft stuff. Like, if he looks over, you know, they make out so as not to draw attention, you know, that kind of stuff. Like, it kind of reminds me of that. It's like a Mission Impossible film without all the crazy shenanigans going on. Before the franchise kind of found its formula and lost its mind, and before it became just a vehicle for Tom Cruise to try and kill himself, you know?
Yeah, basically. For CGI Tom Cruise to make more movies. But yeah, you're right. There's not a lot of violent action per se. There is definitely violence in this movie, but yeah, a lot of it is creative. It's camera work. There is a lot of shaky cam, which some people may not like.
I think it's a style, though.
It definitely adds to like the tension, because it's all about not getting spotted. It's really tense.
You said it follows the original pretty closely, right?
Yeah, it does. Like, the setup is the same in the Korean version. In Cold Eyes, it's a bank robbery, whereas the Hong Kong version is a jewelry store. I'd say, if I was comparing them, because like you were talking about like Mission Impossible, like just going absolute bananas. Cold Eyes follows maybe the surveillance, like gadgetry, a bit more realistic, but there's still some creative flair within the special units investigation itself. I actually think the Hong Kong version appears to have more realistic gadgets, because the way that movie is shot, it's a lot less stylized.
Oh, okay.
And I guess it looks a bit flatter. Like, the budget is not as much as the Korean one. And the characters, I guess aside from Simon Yam, are all quite passive. Like Han Hyo-joo's character, Piggy, she doesn't do as much in the original. She's a bit more passive.
Right.
Like, there's a scene where, I guess in context of the movie, like when you join the surveillance team, I think a rule that they have is to never give up your position, like no matter what the cause is. Like, basically, if you see someone in trouble, you're supposed to ignore it because you are focused on your target.
Yeah.
And if you remember the scene where there's the debt collectors, in Korea, it's all about debt collecting. The debt collectors are beating up a couple, and then like Han Hyo-joo, she tries to stop it, and then she gets like kind of reprimanded.
Sure.
But in the original, it's like it's not a couple; it's just like some salary man, and because it's just like some random salary man, it's like you feel less bad. So Simon Yan's like, "Nah, don't do it. Don't give it your cover." And then she's like, yeah, all right.
Oh, she doesn't give up her cover.
Yeah, she doesn't go.
That's a pretty big difference in terms of character.
Yeah, she feels a little bit bad. I think the strength of Cold Eyes is that they've allowed the actors, I guess, what they're known for is their charms. Because, like, the villains are pretty different as well. Jung Woo-sung has much more of a presence than the villain in the original. Because in the movie, like, Jung Woo-sung is a force to be feared. You'll be more scared of Jung Woo-sung than the other guy. I think he's pretty prolific in Hong Kong. Tony Leung, not the one from Shang-Chi.
The other Tony Leung.
Yeah, there's another Tony Leung.
Yeah.
Tony... Wai Ka Leung, I think. I might have got that wrong. But yeah, he looks a lot more normal than like Jung Woo-sung. I'd say the original is more realistic, and the Cold Eyes is definitely like a blockbuster.
A bit more stylized, yeah.
Yeah, you got like the camera work can get a little bit Michael Bay at times. That's a bad example. I shouldn't say Michael because people won't watch the movie now.
Do you mean the bit where Woo-sung jumps out the window? And
no, there's a bit where the chief is talking to Han Hyo-joo, and it's like that 360 like camera shot where he's asking her to remember all the details and stuff.
So the original is not so much like that?
It's a bit more concise, I would say. There are some like big moments where you see, I guess the rookie, she has her moments in the original where the actress, I guess, like has her like crying moment. And probably maybe it might have been done better as much as like Han Hyo-joo owns her moments in Cold Eyes because they kind of use it a lot. But in the original, there's only a few moments. You know, I guess we'll talk about the 2 p.m. guy. He plays, what's the...
Squirrel.
Oh, yeah. So Squirrel is not in the original.
Okay.
So there's an incident. I guess it's a bit of a spoiler.
Yeah, I feel like the chemistry, because I haven't seen the original, but the chemistry in the team in Cold Eyes was developed kind of very subtly, but still, it was very distinct. And one of the key factors I think was that scene you were talking about with the debt collectors, because like Han Hyo-joo like defies orders to kind of stop this thing from happening. Like a lot of things happen. She does that. The captain steps in as well to kind of protect her, to make sure nothing goes awry. But then he also reprimands her for breaking the rules. But then after that, like the day after, she comes back to work and, you know, apologizes to everybody kind of thing. And they're like, yeah, let bygones be bygones. I think those series of events really do a very efficient job of establishing Han Hyo-joo's character, the captain's character, and the team's chemistry as a whole. So, yeah, that kind of makes it gives like the scene that you're alluding to a bit more gravitas when it happens. Like it makes you feel it a bit more because they are quite a close-knit team.
Because that scene doesn't happen in the original.
Yeah, so that's why I was surprised. Yeah.
It happens to a random, and it's like... But even... It kind of carries some weight in the original. But yeah, I think the remake... I think Cold Eyes does a better job with the team chemistry, whereas in the original, it's basically just the team. There is a little bit, but it's mostly just the captain, Simon Yam, is carrying the team through. It's a lot like Drug War, which is the same director. So the original was directed by Johnny To, who has done a lot of movies in Hong Kong, a lot of like some heroic bloodshed films, and he's popular for like some gangster films called Election. But yeah, do you remember that movie, Drug War?
Like vaguely.
Yeah. It's very similar to that with maybe less shootouts. Like it's very much about the process of catching the villain rather than like, you know, the characters themselves.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I like about Cold Eyes as well. Like it doesn't need all the craziness of like your typical spy film because it stands up like on the process alone, which I found pretty unique. But at the same time, it is kind of like an episode of 24 where not much happens. You know, like the camera work and the music kind of, it does a lot. It does a lot to add tension to scenes that are essentially people following,
watching each other.
Watching somebody have a coffee, you know.
It's funny. It's basically a really exciting movie about the most boring aspect of video games, which is the tailing mission. I was watching like, man, like every time I played games, it's like, follow me or follow that guy. It's like, oh, fuck's sake.
But don't get spotted kind of thing. And it's like the most tedious thing that the
and
video
then because
game
the
can offer.
controls are like slightly janky, you just, your character just moves up. It's like, oh, what was that? And then the screen will dim black. And then you got to start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Cold Eyes is like that, but much, much better.
Sure. I mean, it is essentially people walking and watching other people, and also a lot of people in another room looking at screens. But the camera work and the music I think, pulls it through, and the narrative.
As I was saying before about like letting the actors kind of bring their own spin on it, you can kind of see Han Hyo-joo's like girlish charms put into it. Like, for when they're looking through the rubbish, they're looking through one of the bank robbers' rubbish to find like some kind of code on a paper, and then she like puts it together, and then when she like the chief like times her like 5 minutes, and then she like does it in time, and she does like a little squeal of happiness, and then like the guy just like slaps her with a newspaper, and it's kind of like a little comic moment. Whereas I guess in the original, Simon Yam just leads her with her hand, and then they put it together, and it's like, okay, cool. That's it.
Right.
And man, like Jung Woo-sung, how much do you want to buy a fountain pen after this movie?
It's so, it's an odd weapon of choice, I feel like. Well, I guess you can carry it around and people wouldn't... I would be slightly suspicious of somebody that carries around, that's doing a Sudoku with a fountain pen. I'd be like, who does this guy think he is? But
I guess for some context for our viewers who most likely have seen John Wick, John Wick has killed 2 guys with a pencil, whereas Jung Woo-sung has killed multiple assailants with a fountain pen in this movie. And I like that little use of DIY weaponry, because like when he reprimands one of his goons at the start for taking too long at the bank robbery, he like wraps his face with sticky tape, which is probably implausible, but it's still kind of funny.
It's good. I mean, like, in many ways, he's more effective using the pen than he is with a knife.
Yeah, for sure, There's a fight scene where he literally fights off a gang of dudes with a fountain pen and an umbrella.
I love that. I love the climax of that scene, because he just doesn't waste any time. He sits down and boom, boom, he's done. And then... in
just so many films, wherever they come from, there's always like you sit down and you have a talk with a guy that you want to kill, but Jung Woo-sung sits down, it seems like that guy is about to say something, bang bang
bang bang,
like, I don't hear your shit, I'm off, and he gives him that stare. He's just like looking at him and the guy's like gurgling.
That guy's in Old Boy as well. I feel like he goes out in the same way as in Old Boy.
Yeah, he plays the bodyguard, right?
He's a weird looking bloke.
He's a weird looking bloke.
But Jung Woo-sung is an excellent villain. He should play a villain more, I feel like.
I'm not sure if this is just our bias because we have a man crush for Jung Woo-sung, but you're almost rooting for him as well, because they kind of build him up in a way that he's empathetic. Like, he's pretty ruthless. There's a scene where he's casing and he spots a guy, just a random civilian who just happens to be looking at him through a telescope. So immediately Jung Woo-sung just like packs up, goes to this guy's place, and then he just kicks the door down, and then he asks the guy like, do you live alone? And he's like, yeah, and he just kills him. And it's just like, it's brutal. Like, I guess they kind of try to make that guy not innocent because they like find porn in his apartment.
I didn't even catch
the cops.
That.
Because they look at it, there's like, no, because they find he's been like perving on girls on his computer.
Sure.
Okay. So it's like, he's kind of evil.
I thought that was Jung Woo-sung just passing time, while he's at this guy's apartment. But you kind of feel like he is sort of under the pump because he wants to get out. Yeah, I think he does want to get out. I think, that's like his conversations. That's what ultimately leads him to falling out with the broker.
Yeah.
But I think it's more like in a cat and mouse situation, who are you really rooting for? Are you rooting for the cat or are you rooting for the mouse? In this movie, obviously the law enforcement is the cat trying to catch him, who's the mouse. Yeah. But I think everybody, on some level is rooting for the mouse. They want them to get away. They want them to kind of elude whoever's trying to catch them. And, obviously his performance helps the audience root for him because he's just a cool character. He's a...
it's true. Like, his coolness definitely makes you want to root for him.
Yeah. I mean, the team as well is good. It's hard to choose a side.
Yeah, because I was rooting for because it's Hyo-joo, man. Like, of course I'm rooting for the team. But yeah, they're just, I don't know. It's an interesting film in a sense that you don't really know who you want to win. Because I wanted him to get away. Because he's a cool guy, but he's also like, as I said, well, he wants to get out of the business, but it kind of, the system that he's grown up in or his lifestyle won't let him leave. And when he has an opportunity to, it's you want to see him get away.
I have a question though. Han Hyo-joo's team, they're law enforcement, right? Like, what? Yeah, are they cops or are they spies?
I don't know. Yeah, it's weird
because they don't really arrest anyone.
There's like some kind of like jurisdiction thing. Like, they don't really arrest anyone.
They tail them.
Yeah.
But then until what end do they tail them? Like, there's a part where they're trying to find, they've pretty much captured or killed all of the, oh, that's kind of a spoiler, but they've apprehended like the rest of the bank heist team, and they're trying to catch Jung Woo-sung, and they've like identified him. They know who he is, kind of, and they're following him, but they don't immediately go to apprehend him. They kind of just keep following him. So,
I think it's just a department thing because they're not supposed to give their identities away. Like, I guess that's not what they're supposed to do, even though I guess they eventually do. But because I guess the chief, the woman in charge of the surveillance unit, she has a few like arguments with some unseen
top brass.
And I think that's just...
The chief is up my ass.
I think that's just a common theme in just like Korean movies where there's just someone that's always higher up than you. Like, it doesn't matter how far you get.
Sure.
There's always just someone that calls the shots and you're powerless to do anything.
It was just a bit... I found it a bit ambiguous as to what their actual like goal was. Like, was it to apprehend them or was it to kill them or like...
I get what you mean. I think their goal is to quite literally just identify them and tail them, and then it's basically law enforcement that arrests them. I think there's a bit more of a clearer explanation in the original.
Because they have a lot of rules.
Yeah.
Like,
there's a big difference in the climax of the original compared to the remake, which I guess we should probably do a spoiler warning.
Sure.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
So, yeah. But yeah, with the Jung Woo-sung's character, the villain, he's called James in the remake. I don't remember the name.
Shadow. I think they refer to him as Shadow.
Oh yeah, Shadow. There's because the same thing happens with the chief. Shadow like stabs the chief in pretty much the same way as in when he gets caught in the restaurant. In the remake, they make that the chief's moment because he's been stabbed in the abdomen and the throat, but it's like, nah, I'm good, man. He just gets like stitched up with some staples.
He pulls out some magazines that he had under his shirt, so that protected his abdomen.
That's right, the magazines. Yeah. But
he got slashed in the throat.
It doesn't stop the fact that he's got a slashed throat.
Yeah.
And it seems a lot more dire in the original because I guess it's the makeup because like Simon, it's like super pale and there's all this blood that's leaking on the floor.
Okay.
And he's got this like soliloquy moment where he's like telling a poem to the team as if they're all crying because he's about to die.
Sure.
But then he doesn't die. He's just like, nah, I'm good. But he doesn't go back into the field immediately, which I guess you shouldn't.
Right.
But in the remake, the captain goes back into the field immediately, and then they have that chase in the subway, and then Jung Woo-sung and him have like a standoff, and then like it's a very movie moment.
Sure.
It loses that real, but it's just a cool moment, and he ends up shooting Jung Woo-sung.
Yeah.
So yeah. But
and they all celebrate as if that was their goal. Shouldn't their goal have been to apprehend him so he can like receive proper justice?
Nah, they just wanted to kill him at that point because he killed Score, man.
Yeah, but like every one of them celebrates. And at that point, I was like, so these are the good guys, right? They're cops, right? Like their ultimate goal is to apprehend criminals, not to execute them.
Yeah, I think that's just a bit more of the kind of the Hollywood moment, but it does build to a climax, whereas in the original, so they find the I think it pretty much happens like the crew gets caught on the highway, but not all of them get caught. Some of them get away. So the leader and that crew, they meet up in like this boat pier shack, and then the cops are storming it because the rookie has, because they end up losing Shadow like in Cold Eyes, but then she finds him again through just pure coincidence. So she tails him and then to the pier, and then the cops burst in, and then like they try to capture him, and he's like trying to run away.
Yeah.
And then like when he's like running on the pier, and then you hear like this whoosh sound, and then you see like the Shadow guy just suddenly clutching his neck, and he jumps on the boat, but then he dies. And what happens with him is he ran into just a hook that he didn't see, and like he just dies.
Oh dear.
And that's it. That's the end of the movie. And it's like, oh, cool. So the cops just kind of bust in, and the guy died because of his own incompetence.
Sure.
And then you don't really see what happens to anyone else. There's no epilogue. It's just like the guy's dead, and then the credits roll. It was just really funny.
Yeah.
It was very anticlimactic, but it could happen, because the guy was trying to get away.
But these guys have like superhuman levels of like perception, and you can't notice a big ass hook linked towards your neck.
I think it was a bit slapdash. Like, it wasn't the best ending. Because the original is pretty good. It's definitely got a different style. Like, it still has that kind of like Jason Bourne realism to it, but it's more like it's I guess it's more grounded in reality, in a sense that they had a much smaller budget than Cold Eyes. I mean, Cold Eyes only had a 4.5 million budget as well, so it's not that much. I guess it's a clever aspect of both films, is that because you can't just have explosions and gunfights, you have to be clever in how you film and to make it exciting. And to make tailing exciting it's hard to do, because it sounds boring. Because like when I've talked to some people about this movie, it's like, oh yeah, surveillance, huh? It sounds boring.
It's quite simple as well. The
good.
plot is very simple. The plot, is basically these cops are trying to catch some bank robbers.
Yeah.
And a lot of the film is just following people around and looking at screens and talking to each other via radio or the phone. But I think if it were any longer, it would probably get a bit tedious. And a series of 24, for example. But,
I think it's a good length.
It moves at a clip. I
do feel like it's an underrated movie, because I'd love to see like behind the scenes stuff. And for some like cult films, there's some companies that will like buy the rights for the film, and then they'll package like a special Blu-ray with all the special features and stuff. But I think this movie got its due notice in Korea, but definitely not in the West. It didn't get any form of release here. It's an exciting movie. I really liked it.
It's not like your typical Cannes Film Festival.
It's not.
It's just an enjoyable film to watch.
Definitely, really, really easy, and a lot less heavy than probably the other film that we're going to talk about.
Should we talk about Age of Shadows?
Yeah, let's move on to another movie about tailing and looking at people. But this one, another Kim Jee-woon movie. So our show is basically Korean movies and Kim Jee-woon. Because it's all we ever talk about is Kim Jee-woon.
Wow.
But he is seriously a master at his craft.
Well, we'll probably go into a bit more detail in this episode. I mean, the other ones we've kind of mentioned him. But this movie, though. Give us a breakdown of Age of Shadows.
So Age of Shadows is about Lee Jung-cho, who's played by Sung Kang-ho, who's basically Korea's like #1 actor. He's in all the films. He's in The Host. He's in Parasite.
The only
Plays
film
the
that
dad in
exists.
the only film that exists in Korea.
He's the dad in Parasite. Enough said.
So all the films in Korea are spin-offs of Parasite. Even films before Parasite, they're spins off of Parasite.
Sure.
So in the Parasite universe in Age of No, this is fun. So yeah, Age of Shadows is set in the 1920s, 1910s during the Japanese occupation of Korea. And it's about Song Kang-ho's character, Lee Jong-chul, who is a former resistance fighter but turned traitor to the Japanese police force. So he works as a translator for them. And he also works in like capturing his old comrades, like resistance fighters. But he is kind of coaxed back into working for them by the head of the resistance leader to do a big task for the fight of Korea's independence at the time. It's pretty all-star cast.
I'll just mention a few names, yeah. So you mentioned Song Kang-ho as Lee Jung-chul. We've got Gong Yoo as Kim Woo-jin.
Also known as Train to Busan
Train to Busan guy, yes.
Or no, now it's the Dakji guy.
From Squid Game.
From Squid Game. Yeah.
We've got an extended cameo from Lee Byung-hun. He plays the leader of the resistance, Jong Cha-se. We've also got others, Han Ji-min as the woman, Yan Gi-sun, Tae-gu as Hashimoto, and Park Hee-sun, who we previously talked about in our review of My Name.
I was really surprised when I rewatched this movie. I'm like, is that Choi Woo-jin?
Yeah. Park Hee-sun plays Kim Sang-ho.
And who's the gangster guy from Squid Game? Because he's in this movie.
Yes, Sang-tae.
Yeah, so there's quite a few Netflix Korean actors and Squid Game members in this movie.
I think 3 Squid Game alumni. 3?
Oh, really? 3?
Well, there's Lee Byung-hun,
Gong Yoo,
Lee Byung-hun, Gong Yoo, and
Oh
Sang-hae. So Sang-tae.
Yeah. Apparently, this was the movie that got the who's the gangster guy again?
Sang-tae.
Yeah, so this was the movie that kind of catapulted him in Korea. He doesn't play a massive role, but I was just reading. I'm not sure if this is accurate or not because he gets slapped by Song Kang-ho, and that's kind of what people remembered from this movie.
Oh, really?
And that's how he started getting roles. It's only it's
a pretty small bit in the film. So this film is a period film, period spy film set during Japanese occupation of Korea. Yeah, again, it's not a James Bond. If that, even though we introduced James Bond in this episode, it's not. Yeah. It's definitely not. It's more like it's more of your traditional.
How would you say?
Like it's kind of like a John le Carre spy thriller. You know, like a lot of like actual spycraft in it. But it is also a period piece. So the 1920s Korea / Shanghai, I guess.
There was a couple of two movies from, this was 2016 when this movie came out. And there were 2 movies, including this one and The Handmaiden, that make use of this period history, like the Japanese occupation. The big, like, shining factor of this film and a lot of Kim Jee-woon films is just the set design and just it's just so awesome to look at. I'd only seen this movie twice, including a few days ago when I rewatched it, and I just forgot how beautiful this movie was.
It's so good. Like, I'm not one to notice that kind of thing because I don't really have a studied eye, but like you can't ignore how good this movie looks.
Yeah, the set design and just the camera work and the lighting and just
the costuming as well. I love all the big coats and the era appropriate mustaches.
I really like this period, like this look. I guess it's kind of like Western Eastern colonialism look, because it's like a lot of the sets there, you'll see sets set in Korea, the Japanese police station, and portion of the film's narrative takes place in Shanghai. A lot of it is Western influence, but it's not Western. It's like Asians' interpretation of Western. And I think it looks really cool. Like, I just like
it's definitely it's a very appealing aesthetic. Like the slick hair and the little mustaches and gloves, wearing gloves, It's
pretty much like a Kim Jee-woon film. I was talking to you yesterday, and you said, like, this is such a Kim Jee-woon movie. This is the guy that did A Tale of Two Sisters. He does a lot of tracking and crane shots, and he does like shootouts pretty well. Like, you can see aspects of The Good, the Bad, and the Weird, which is a Western that he directed, which is also a fantastic movie. In the start, you see a lot of the crane shots. They're basically chasing one of the leaders of the resistance because he's been busted. And you see like the Japanese army chasing him, and there's like some choreographed fight sequences in this movie which are like pretty well done. They're pretty sparse. I'd say there's maybe 2 or 3, but the set pieces are just amazing because like it doesn't. There probably has been some CGI used in this movie, but it doesn't look like it. Like, I couldn't tell. It looks like they've had to build all of these sets and get all the costuming, and it's and Kim Jee-woon's a bit of a stickler for that. He loves like sweeping crane shots, and you can see a lot of that in this movie.
Yeah, I went into it pretty blind, but as soon as I saw the first scene where they are chasing this guy across rooftops, I immediately recognize it as, that good, the bad, the weird kind of vibe. A lot of tracking shots of people running across rooftops, and and the gunplay as well is very reminiscent of that film. And then as you go throughout the film, you see elements from his other works as well.
Just the immaculate framing from like Tale of Two Sisters. You'd see the sweeping shots from The Good, the Bad, and the Weird, and you see the brutality that you've seen in I Saw the Devil, which is arguably his most famous work, which is a brutal watch, but great movie. How exciting are the first 2 acts of this movie?
I mean, I found the whole film, it's quite a long film, but
2 hours and a half.
Yeah, it moves at a clip. Like I never felt that any of the scenes, they all went for as long as they should, and I never felt bored, which for a 2.5 hour film, that's quite a feat, especially for this subject matter. It's a period piece, and it's a spy film but it's like the dry kind of spy film, more like your Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy than your James Bond stuff.
When I first watched the movie, I loved the first 2 acts. I was like, this is fucking brilliant. And the first time I watched it, I was a little bit let down by the 3rd act. It makes a tonal shift. And it's a bit depressing. It's very depressing. It's a lot depressing. Kim Jee-woon knows how to make you feel bad. I mean, he does that pretty well. But when I watched it again, I enjoyed the 3rd act a lot more. I still think it drags on just a bit. It could have been a bit tighter, but just kind of observing the film a bit more from a different standpoint, with a bit more time to think about it, I actually really like the 3rd act as well. But I think the first 2 acts, or the train segment is like
perfection.
It's cinema gold. You should talk about. I don't even know how to segue into this scene because I want to talk about Hashimoto because he's.
Well, let's start with talking about Hashimoto.
Wait, we should probably actually talk about Song Kang-ho's character.
Okay,
and
true.
The protagonist.
Let's talk about Lee Jung-choo and Kim Woo-jin's dynamic. Yeah.
Lee Jung-cho. He's the protagonist of this movie. You start off not liking the guy because he's a traitor.
He's a rat. He's a no good, dirty rat.
Yeah, it was a very interesting character to make the audience root for. Throughout the movie, you can see the conflict that goes through him because as the story goes, he's kind of being coaxed back into working to the resistance, but he's so hesitant to go back, but he's also torn up by being a traitor.
Yeah, for sure. And
this is the kind of person that you would just be like, you're a piece of shit and I don't want anything to do with. But you follow his journey and it's honestly pretty amazing that you end up feeling for this guy.
Well, it's what you've talked about before as well. Like, flawed characters are much easier for an audience to relate to than someone that's just, overly righteous. Because this is a hard time in Korean history.
Yeah, for sure.
People are just trying to survive, right?
Yeah, exactly, 100%. It sounded very like Bondi Surfy just saying, 100%. Yeah, you're right. And he's just trying to get by. You say he meets up with Train to Busan guy.
Kim Woo-jin is the character.
Kim Woo-jin. He's posing as an antique dealer, and he kind of has conversations with Lee Jung-cho, and they go drinking a few times, and he thinks he is a good. Well, he doesn't really think he's good, but it's just like the resistance is desperate. They talk about how their numbers are dwindling, and they're just not. There's nothing good happens, and that's kind of the depressive factor because it's like they just haven't had a victory.
Yeah. Like their backs are against the wall, and they're desperate, which is why they kind of reach out to Lee Jung-chul in the first place, which is a huge risk because he's basically a Japanese policeman at this point. Obviously he is one of their countrymen, but he's switched sides for so long, and he's been working and kind of like arresting his countrymen for so long that they can't be sure where his allegiance lies, and they can't be sure that they can turn him, but they have to give it a go because that's where they're at the moment.
What do you think about the Japanese representation in this movie? It's not glowing, but it's not, let's say, compared to Ip Man, it's not completely cartoonish.
I think it gets more cartoonish towards as the film progresses.
This movie would not play well in Japan.
Well, I mean, I took it more as Korean patriotism, more so than, Japan bashing.
It's a bit more subtle, but I guess I won't compare countries because we'll get cancelled. but
definitely the Japanese come off as villains, I guess, in this film.
Because there's some very clever signposting to Lee Jung-cho's feelings to the resistance, because he's at the start where Sang-tae is about to be, cornered and stuff, and he's like, look, let me go talk to him, I'll talk him out of it. And then the Japanese guys are like, yeah, all right, but then they just disobey him. They fuck up, and there's a level of incompetence from the Japanese army.
It's funny because Kim Jee-woon, he kind of, in a lot of his films, he makes the Korean police look quite inept. So true. Maybe he's just got a problem with authority.
I think so. Yeah, you're right. That just happens in a lot of Korean movies where the police, maybe even in Cold Eyes, that's probably the most positive representation of police force that I've seen. But they fuck up, and then it eventually makes the leader. He shoots himself, and he, there's a very when he talks to the head captain,
Higashi.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, Captain Higashi, and he's like, so he was your friend, right? And then just the way the camera, it's like a medium close up, and it's like, no. But you can obviously tell he's lying. He obviously was his friend. And it's just little things like that make you pick up. his conflict.
But it is just subtle enough so that you don't really know like whose side Jung Chul is on.
Yeah.
You know, at any point in the film except the end, I guess. But yeah.
But you just see a lot of shots when he's at the police station, and they're like just these quiet shots, and they're wide, and he's just sitting there, and you can see like the rising sun flag and the, I don't know what the flag is called, but it's the sun with the spirals.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, and he's just sitting there, and then he just looks so alone, and he's just thinking like, am I doing the right thing? And there's especially one where we'll meet Hashimoto, which is his assigned partner,
played by Tae-gu.
Yeah, there's a big conflict between those two characters because Hashimoto is basically a guy who doesn't want to respect Lee Jung-chul, and he undermines him like at any point by hiding information from him.
Sure. It's kind of implied that he's there to keep tabs on Jung Chul as well. Because, like, obviously, I guess the Japanese can't trust someone that's not one of their own.
Yeah. How good is the casting of Hashimoto?
Oh, it's so... As soon as I saw him, I'm like, oh, this guy's bad. He's got a mean-looking face. Like...
He's got a very sharp jawline and that like
it's
kind
the
of
high cheekbones. I think it's like the high cheekbones and the little mustache. It's like if J Park had a little mustache. You know, he looks mean, right?
Oh yeah, I'd seen him before in a movie I watched sometime this year called Night in Paradise, and he plays a protagonist, and he looks completely different because that guy is like a likable dude in that movie.
Yeah.
Whereas in this movie, I only figured out when I was like looking at Wikipedia the other day. I'm like, man, this guy, he just looks like a rat. He's very ratty.
It's definitely the camera work as well. Like when he's first introduced, you know immediately this guy he's not to be trusted. Yeah.
He's basically I'm pretty sure people have seen the Disney animated Mulan, and there's the advisor. He's basically a live action version of that. With a smaller mustache. I wanted to talk about because there's a bit where I think Hashimoto is like playing the kind of spy games, and one of his informants fucks up, and he's just like for a minute just slapping this guy very hard.
Yeah.
And I wonder what I'm just thinking like on the day of the set, because he's slapping this guy.
It looks
with his
real.
gloves.
It looks like he's actually hitting that actor, right?
It looks real because you're not supposed to hit people on set. When you do those slapping scenes, you have to block it. Because like you don't want to hurt anyone on set, but maybe in Korea they just slap the shit out of that guy.
Kim Jee-woon seems like the kind of director that would be like, slap this guy for 1 minute, and then the actor's like, 이게 뭐야? And then like, you read it correctly. You're gonna get slapped for a minute and with this glove. Because the way it's shot, it's a continuous shot. It doesn't look like there's any way to kind of fake it. Like, I'm not in the biz, so I wouldn't know, but it definitely looks real.
I guess the glove is made out of a very soft material, and it's just it's Foley work. It's just sound design because like it looks hard, man. Like if I was that, because that's just an extra who's just getting slapped. Basically, it's like a one scene, and you're just getting. I don't know. Maybe the guy's like, "Oh, I'm so glad to be in this movie." And it's like, okay,
well,
so we're gonna slap you
the
for a
only
minute.
thing that kind of like took me away was his cheek doesn't really redden.
Yeah,
from the slaps, which it would.
Yeah, it would.
With the intensity and length of the slaps, I think it would be red. But
I'm just thinking about the scene. It's just making me laugh because it's so.
I'm just
intense.
saying, if that was real, I feel like the union should probably step in at some point. The Actors Guild should be like, Kim Jee-woon, man, just calm down. This ain't right.
We've referenced the train scene a few times. We have to talk about that scene because it is like, it's a cinematic brilliance basically what the resistance is trying to do is get to Seoul from Shanghai, trying to hide explosives on a train. And what they want Lee Jung-chul for is to kind of grant them easy passage. But at this point of the movie, there's just so much suspicion of each other. And, Hashimoto's not supposed to be on the train, but through some other level of informant, he finds out, and then he gets on the train unbeknownst to Lee Jung-chul. And then, he's got to kind of act the part where it's like, it's nothing. But then, they're trying to, all throughout the sequence, he's like going up and down and trying to relay information. And it's just so tense because at this point, Hashimoto and basically the Japanese army know what the resistance looks like. So they just walk in through the train, just checking the passengers and stuff. And there's like these just really, there's a lot of these close call scenes. Yeah, it's just so tense.
Yeah, it's the close quarters of it all. And just so many things going on at once. Like the resistance is trying to catch a rat as well.
It's the stakes are just raised constantly. And I guess, it climaxes into they meet in a bar. It's pretty hard to talk about the rest of the movie without going into spoilers.
Shall we just talk about spoilers then?
Yeah.
But if you haven't watched this film, you should.
Yeah, watch it. It's amazing. It's got all the Kim Jee-woon, trademarks like orchestral swells, immaculate framing, crane shots, super slick attention to detail, and just super slickness. His movies are always slick. They're always very stylish.
Anyway, the train scene, the train dining car scene.
Yeah, when Hashimoto has basically discovered the identity, and it's like, because he says he's not going to join, because like Lee Jung-chul's like, I'm going to go have a beer, and he's like, oh no, I don't drink, but he just comes anyway. You know what's going to happen, but I think the tension's added by the civilians that are there, which is kind of funny.
They didn't need to be there.
There's this like Japanese couple where I guess they kind of try to villainize, because like Lee Jung-chul walks by and he accidentally knocks the girl or something. No.
He grabs her.
He suspects the girl and he grabs her, and then like her boyfriend's like, "Hey, bro," obviously not like that, but that's the intention. It's like, "Hey, bro, why'd you in Australian, why'd you touch my girl, cunt?"
His jaw juts out a bit.
She tells him to calm down. And then like Hashimoto and the Squid Game guy come in. And then, like, the couple, they tried to leave, but then the Squid Game guy's like, no, sit down. Just sit down. But there's, like, this three-way between Hashimoto, Lee Jung-chul, and Kim Woo-jin. And it's just, like, at this point, your tension is at fucking peak levels, because you know some shit's going to go down.
Yeah, like, they're definitely, like, even Jung-chul, he sees Hashimoto coming, and then he's like, Woo-jin, I think this is the end of the road for us, kind of thing. Yeah. So there's that sense of finality, like something is going to go down at this point.
For a more mainstream comparison, just think of the Inglourious Basterds scene in the bar there. And I feel like Kim Jee-woon was probably inspired by that scene. It plays very much like a Tarantino shoot-up scene.
The part where they're in the bar with... what's his name? Magneto.
Michael Fassbender.
Yeah. That scene. Yeah. And when the penny drops, that the German officer knows that they're not German. That's basically this train cart scene.
Yeah. But it's so well done. And then it obviously accumulates into a shootout where the couple that the Squid Game guy told to stay just gets shot. Which is like, for me, like, I kind of feel sorry for them, but it's also funny because it's like they tried to leave and like the guy's a cop. The Squid Game guy's a cop.
Yeah.
So, but he's just like, no, just stay.
There was no need for them to stay.
I feel like the only reason, if I'm trying to justify his thought, is that he wants them to stay so there's less chance of a shootout because they're the resistance. They don't want to kill people, but like everyone basically dies except for Woo-jin and the bartender.
and Jung Choo.
She was a lot more lucky than the bartender in Cowboy Bebop. Oh yeah, Jung Choo survives as well.
I didn't see who survived and who did. I thought probably the bartender died, but I guess
no, because you see her like just crouched in the corner, just like cowering for her life.
Okay.
But like you kind of see the couple in a very quick edit. Like it's the kind of because you hear a gunshot and you see like for a few frames like them just like doing that kind of arching your body when you get shot moment. So I think they're dead. But there's basically like a face off between Hashimoto and Lee Jung-chul, and then there's like a there's a really awesome like kiss and kill moment.
It's one of those ones where they're pinned against the wall together and he's forcing the gun towards his face. Like moments from getting killed is kiss. Which is basically the creators like you in the subtitles it says you filthy traitor, but it's more like much worse.
You son of a bitch. Which is like it's way worse in Korean. It's really offensive.
It's the worst thing you can call somebody at this point in time, I guess. Yeah.
So to our Korean listeners, sorry for swearing because it's a lot more sacred than it is in English to swear in Korean.
What do we care? We're Australian.
That's true. Yeah.
Constantly dropping the C-bomb for nothing.
Yeah.
But good scene.
I remember watching that for the first time. Like this is fucking awesome. Yeah. And I think that scene was too good the first time I watched it, which leads into the third act where it just becomes it's less about espionage than more of like a depression fest because at the train station they're all caught except for Woojin.
A lot of them escape, but they're caught in a montage.
Caught in a montage where they're all eventually just shot by them. And it's just like, oh, fuck it hell. And I think my issue with the third act is that it gets a bit overly sentimental and it slows down a lot. But on rewatching it, I appreciated watching the conflict inside Lee Jung-chul, like the acting, because there's a scene where one of the resistance members is caught. It's the woman, and she is basically tortured by the
and that's Japanese where like police. the Japanese villainy really surfaces in full swing. You know,
because you can see I saw the devil influences there. Just a set. It's such a you see like the blood on the floor. It's pretty graphic. Because
Higashi is there. Lee Jung-chul's commander kind of guy, the guy that's in charge of Jung-chul. Yeah, and he's quite friendly to Jung-chul. He's quite like, I forgive you for everything that's happened. You know what happened with Hashimoto is kind of unavoidable. Let go bygones be bygones. But also we've got this Korean woman. Let's torture her. And like, and the torturer as well is kind of like he's about to smash her feet with a hammer, and he's like, no, none of that. And then he pulls out like this hot iron kind of thing, and you're like, oh fuck, this guy is not as nice as we thought he was. We didn't think he was nice, but he's less nice than we thought he was.
It's the contrast as well, because it's so cruel. Because I think with that act, he's revealing that he still doesn't trust Lee Jung-chul. So it's like, you want my trust? You gotta burn your friend's face.
Also, Jung-chul goes for like the leg at first. And then
and it's
Higashi's like, no, the face. Do it to the face,
Oh man, like it's pretty gut wrenching. The third act is a pretty hard watch, which may or may not turn people off.
Well, it kind of like treads, because before that it had been a lot of espionage, like
espionage.
But after that, it kind of descends into like kind of war film-ish stuff. Like you see the repercussions, I guess. Yeah.
It gets a bit more melodramatic, I guess. At this point, he's obviously chosen a side. He wants to help his comrades, but he can't do shit. And like they're all fucked. Like you said, like in that montage where the guy's
they all get fucked.
He's like talking to his like sick mums that you gotta live. I gotta go away.
As he's getting
immediately
kicked.
he's getting dragged. He's getting beaten.
Yeah, it's rough stuff. And even the capture of Woojin as well is pretty rough to watch.
It is, like, it's so sad when he gets captured, because it's like, so this dude, I don't remember the name they said, but this dude and such wants me to give you a passport. And it's like, who? And I was like, shit. It's just like, that's such a sick moment. And then you see all the military just coming in, and then you see like the kind of the gunfight, and it's just like, it's cool. But like also very sad.
You're like, at first, when they've left the shack thing, you're like, oh, maybe they got away. Yeah. And then you see Woojin like running through a forest, and there's like 1 million Japanese soldiers behind him. He's not getting away.
gets shot. He gets shot in the ankle. And it's just like the scene that follows after when they're in the court, because they capture Lee Jong-cho as well. But Lee Jong-cho basically denounces the resistance at that. But he's obviously not. But it's just like the acting, it's just like there's just so much fucking conflict. It's just like, I've got to say this shit. I've got to denounce these people. I have to be a traitor. But it's revealed that he had made some kind of plan with Woojin for him to take the explosives instead. But it's just rough. You see Woojin get tortured, and like he clips his nail off, and you see all this just splurt of blood, and it's like, once again it's the I saw the devil, like kind of shit.
I think there's also the reveal that like they caught them because of that photo he took of Jung
that's
Woo-sung,
right.
which is kind of like his love interest as well. I guess it is his love interest, and
she's in the courtroom, and she's a very injured woman, and she basically dies off screen, and I think the fact that it's off screen is more impactful, and you just see because Lee Jong-cho gets released from jail, and you see one of the carters just carting a body that's been covered, so you don't see the full extent of what they've done to her, and it's like, I think that makes it more graphic,
and the fact that
harsh.
Woojin, the last time he saw her is probably that courtroom.
Man, poor Woojin, man. But the film does end on a happy note,
somewhat, unless you're Japanese. Do you think the intent was to show that neither side was right? I mean, this film definitely picked a side, right?
It's definitely more on the patriotic side for Korea.
Yeah, because especially the last few sequences is very like kind of rewriting history.
But I guess it's like, I think maybe he was trying to show that no sides are the right side. I've seen another war movie from Korea. It's called Taikoki, The Brotherhood of War, and it's basically about the war between the North and South and these two brothers. I won't go into too much, but they kind of show the bad side between both the North and the South. So I think that was a film that does that really well. But I think this movie definitely chose a side, but I think maybe when they execute the mole, I think they're trying to imply that the resistance is not that good either. And just the amount of I think just the act of what they're doing it's basically an act of terrorism. Whether you're oppressed or not, it's still some form of terrorism.
There were innocent waiters in that board.
There's the girls that are playing the drums, man. I mean, I'm just here to play drums, and now I'm dead.
Thanks, Korean resistance.
But it only showed that the top half of the building blew up, so maybe all the people. But it doesn't really make sense, does it?
Yeah.
But so there are a lot of waiters that are dead now, and they're probably Koreans. But you can't. I mean,
casualties of war, it's collateral damage,
Collateral damage. After that happens, there's a scene where where Gong-yu, Kim Woo-jin is in jail, and it's like, how the cop is like slowly relaying information to him. like he's like, oh yeah, do you hear that Yeon, the girl has died and such, and it's like super sad. But when he hears about the officials getting blown up, there's that shot where it's like it's from the top, and you see that little slither of light, and it makes it look like a pillow.
I did not notice that.
Oh, okay, there you go. But yeah, like you see the sunlight come down through the prison, and it makes like this shape of a light that looks like a pillow.
Sure.
And then he just rests his head down and he smiles, and he's like,
okay.
It was a really nice moment.
I'll be honest. I was looking at the bucket in that room and thinking, wow, there's no poop or pee in that bucket.
I see that's what the commoners look at that when they're watching movies, huh? Well, you watch that scene again. It's a really nice shot, and he's being comforted. And he's got like his life hasn't been wasted, even though he would most likely be executed soon.
Yeah,
but like, it was good. And then there's basically the ending of the movie where like the absolute endings, the implied bombing of the. Oh no! It actually, if you watch the credits, all the way through, there's an explosion at the end.
That didn't happen in real life, right?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I tried to look it up and I couldn't. I feel
like the movie is more optimistic than real life.
Sure, I think it's a bit fantastical, historical recreationalism, not to the extent of Inglourious Basterds, but I don't think that happened in real life.
I don't think the resistance was ever that successful. They were probably more put against the wall than the film.
Because they didn't have Lee Byung-hun, I guess.
They didn't have Lee Byung-hun. They didn't have Train to Busan guy.
Yeah.
They most definitely had a Hashimoto.
Yeah.
And they most definitely, the Hashimotos have won. But yeah.
No, good film.
We still like Japanese people. I know we have a couple of Japanese listeners, so sorry.
Sorry for this film that we didn't make but enjoy. I mean, it is a good film, though.
Yeah, it's great. You're talking about which one you liked better. I guess that wasn't really what I considered. But it's hard because I like Cold Eyes and Age of Shadows for different reasons. Cold Eyes doesn't make me feel like shit when I watch it.
I definitely rewatch Cold Eyes before I would rewatch Age of Shadows, I think.
Yeah. I would love to have seen Age of Shadows in a cinema, just like watching it the other day. Age of Shadows it was released in Australia. I mean, you can buy it on DVD at JB, but it's like, you want to watch this 1080, man. You don't want to watch it on DVD. It's such a gorgeous movie. I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah, give these both a watch. They're both really good in their own right. And I think probably different audiences will appreciate each movie on a different level, because like when you're watching a spy film, sometimes, you just want to watch some action, you don't want to watch something overly heavy. And if that's what you're looking for, Cold Eyes is probably the one to go for.
Yeah, Cold Eyes is more just it's the much easier to digest action, whereas Age of Shadows there's a bit more of a message. There's a lot more of the. I would have to agree that Age of Shadows is probably the better movie than Cold Eyes. But I think I like Cold Eyes more as a form of entertainment, because it's like, it's got like Jung Woo-sung and Hyo-joo, like two of the most attractive people in the world. And it's something you'd watch with friends. Age of Shadows, you'll get a mixed response because of the third act. It's just...
Yeah, Cold Eyes is more crowd pleasing.
Yeah, for sure.
But I would say Age of Shadows has more gravitas.
I think so.
But good, both good. Check them out if you want. But if you have seen these films, what did you think of them? Do you prefer one over the other? Also, if you're looking for James Bond, these films are not James Bond. So,
we basically just use James Bond as a loose form to talk about these two excellent films.
Yeah. Espionage films take many forms. What can I say? You know.
Yes, sure.
So yeah, are you also a Han Hyo-joo fan or a Jung Woo-sung fan? Are you a fan of Kim Jee-woon's other films? Like there are a lot of good ones. We'll probably talk about most of them during the course of this series. But yeah. Let us know in the comments. You can find us also at twoasianblokes@gmail.com, or you can join our Facebook group to be part of the conversation.
All right, guys.
Thank you for listening. Until next time. Bye.
See you later. Watch these movies.
Yeah, do it.